Anybody can make these spun cotton carrots. This is a simple design, doesn't take a lot of materials, and you can turn them into ornaments, string them onto a garland, or attach them to an Easter basket. The materials for this are really simple. I'm using absorbent medical cotton, and then for the binder, this is cornstarch medium. To make that, take 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, mix it with a little bit of water to make a slurry, just like you're making gravy, and then add that a little bit at a time to 1 cup of boiled water. Stir, stir, stir for a couple minutes and continue to cook it until there aren't any lumps left. And try not to stress out about this too much. It will still work if it's a little thin or a little thick. Just about any paintbrush is going to work. Today I'm using a 1/2 inch oval mop brush. And then I'm going to be building the shape on a knitting needle. I use either aluminum or plastic knitting needles. These are size 3. And that's going to allow me to build the shape using this as a handle. And then I'll remove the needle and it will leave a hole in the top, which is where I can put the greenery, and if I want a hanging loop, that can go in there too. For the carrot top, I'm going to be making that out of crepe paper, and I have a template. You could certainly freehand this shape. It doesn't need to be perfect, but I will have this template available for free on my website. To start, I'm going to unroll the cotton because the inner layers are going to have some little wrinkles and imperfections, and I'm going to use that for the inside of the piece and save the nicer outer layers for the outside. You can see how the inside of the cotton roll has these wrinkles and imperfections. This is still perfectly usable cotton, but I'm going to use this for the inside of my pieces. So to start, I'm just going to split this apart. This kind of expands to be about maybe 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch thick. And I don't really need it to be all that thick. So there's a piece that's about 1/4 inch thick, and I'm just going to tear that into smaller strips. So there are some strips that I can start working with. I'm just going to make a carrot that's maybe 3 inches long. If you want much bigger pieces, this can be very easily scaled up. And now here I've got the pointy end of my needle and the cotton. I'm wrapping it over and then turning it so that I'm wrapping over the end of the cotton and it's secured. And I'm just going to start turning the needle and holding the cotton with some tension. And if the strip breaks, there it comes off, just smooth it against itself. And cotton sticks to cotton, so you can just wrap over the end and keep going. And I'm just going to extend a little bit past the end. And then I'm going to start turning it back the other way. And when I run out, I'll turn the needle and press it with my fingers. And this is how you start building a shape and getting that density. Like that. So I'm going to keep going, and in building a carrot, I want this end to be thicker and this end to stay pointy. So I will start adding more layers up here and letting it taper off toward the end before wrapping back the other way. I tend to hold the needle with my dominant hand You might find a different way of holding the cotton and the needle that works for you. I think I'm going to add a little more. Maybe not quite as much as I have here. There. Okay, I think I'm ready to start wrapping that with thread. I'm just going to put the spool in this cup so that it doesn't roll off my table. And I'll just wrap over the end of the thread to secure it. And now the point is to just wrap it with enough thread so that the shape is staying together. And it also compresses it slightly. You can also make icicles with this exact same method. Just kind of want to capture the top here. This little bit here I can cut off later if it's still sticking up when I'm finished. And I'm looking at the shape to see that it's uniform. And I think that's plenty. So I'm gonna cut the thread and tuck the end in just so that it's secured for a second until I get going with the cotton layers. There, like that. Just cut off this tail. Okay, I'm happy with that. So I am going to get a nicer piece of cotton, and I'll save this for the inside of another one. So here's a piece of that outer layer of the cotton. And again, I'm going to split this a few times. It doesn't need to be this thick. So again, it's about 1/4 inch thick, and I'll just tear off the straight factory edge. I want all fluffy edges. And I guess I'm tearing about 1-inch strips. If I want to get a little detailed with this, I can have smaller strips. It doesn't really matter. This comes together like paper mache. You can use little patches, long strips, whatever you like. Okay, let's start with that. And to begin, I'm going to brush starch over the whole piece, and that's going to compress all of this wrapped cotton. And it will also give this cotton something to stick to. You can also get in here with your fingers, like if you see a little lump, and press it down. We are making carrots. These don't necessarily need to have a perfect shape. The carrots I grow in my garden, not perfect. Okay, and then it's kind of similar to before. I'm just going to start adding some layers. coming back up the other way now. I always turn mine in the same direction, and that way I don't get confused about how I've been putting the cotton on. You could turn it toward you or away from you. And I'm starting to run out of cotton here, so I'm just going to pull off the last bit and smooth the end against the surface. And then I use my fingers to press it. And because I had the starch on there, it is sticking. And then I'm going to brush on the starch. And I'll use my fingers again to press. I will probably put on 2 to 3 layers, just until the shape is where I want it. I don't want this to get too big because I'm using this as an ornament. So I might actually split this strip down a little bit so I don't have too much going on. There. Yeah, I think one more layer and I'm going to be happy with that. Maybe just this little piece here. You can see that there's this little natural root forming at the end there, and I think that's great. So I will encourage that. So I think that looks pretty good, and what I'm going to do is prop this up in a jar and let it dry. Okay, my shape has now dried, so I'm going to remove it from the needle so that I can trim up this top part here. So I'm just going to gently twist it. Sometimes it sticks a little, but just a little twist and it should release itself. There it comes. Just remove that. And you can see I've got the hole at the top, but I do want to cut off this piece here. And then I'm going to put the needle back because I'm going to use this as a handle while I paint. And today I'm using just regular acrylic paint. I'm going to mix some of this white chalk paint into this orange just to lighten it a little bit. But you could use watercolors, gouache, even like a spray stain or something like that. Get really artistic with it. And now I'm going to go ahead and just put some color on this. All right, there's my base coat. I'm just gonna set that there while I get my next color. Now here I've got some of that white and I'm just gonna put a little bit of this light yellow in. And that will be my accent color. And I've got a long liner brush here. This is a 5-0 size. And I'm just gonna add some little random lines. I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to set that up to let it dry. So to make this greenery, first I'm going to cut out my template. All right, and then the crepe paper that I'm using today is one of the thicker kinds. I think it would be preferable to use a thinner crepe paper, but I'm working with what I have today. So I'm just going to cut out a manageable piece. And because this is so highly textured, I'm going to stretch it out. Make it a little bit thinner and smoother. See if I can cut 4 at one time. And I don't much care if these are perfectly cut. These are just giving the idea of carrot greens. They don't actually look like carrot leaves. You could also starch some green fabric and use that instead of paper. I've also seen some vintage spun cotton carrots that have little green feathers for the tops, which is cute. Okay, so there are my leaves. And because I'm wanting to make this into an ornament, I have some button thread here, and I'm going to tie a little loop that I can insert with the leaves. Just tying a knot. So there's the little loop, and I'll just kind of embed that in there with the leaves. I've got some clear tacky glue, and I'm going to take my carrot off of the knitting needle. And then to arrange these leaves, each one I'm going to pinch at the bottom. And then I'm gathering them together. And kind of ruffle these, make them look frilly. And my little loop. And I'm just going to twist the ends here. It just has to be small enough to get into my little top hole here, and I think it's going to be fine. So I'll put the glue in the hole. I'm going to arrange these a little bit and then just set it down to dry. So I've gone and made a couple more carrots, and I'm going to put a little bit of clear glitter on these. Glitter is optional, but I'm just going to use a little bit of mixed grain clear glass glitter to give them a little shimmer. And I'm not going to completely coat these in glitter. I've just got some of the clear tacky glue here, and I'm going to apply it just around the tops of the carrots, almost like frost out of the ground. Just around the top there. And I've got a plate to collect the excess. There. And I'll just prop that up to dry there in a cup. Okay, and I'll let those dry.